In the last session, we have learned how to prepare profit and loss appropriation account. In this session, we learn how to calculate interest on capital. Now, when you talk about interest on capital, the first thing arises, what is the need to provide interest on capital to the partners? Now, when the partners provide capital to the firm, it's like when you deposit the money in the bank, you get the interest from the bank. Similar, when the partners invest money in the business as capital, they should get the interest. Why is this so? Let us see first. Now, when you talk about this interest on capital, the need. First is, what is the need for this? Now, it's like the partners may have invested some unequal amount of capital in the business. Unequal amount means, say for example, there are two partners, A and B. A has invested rupees 2 lakhs as his capital and B has invested only rupees 1 lakh. This is the capital investment done by them in the partnership firm. But the profit sharing ratio, what profit they are sharing, the profit sharing ratio is equal. Equal means what? 1 is to 1. Now, if the profit at the end of the year amounts to say something 20,000 rupees, this 20,000 will be shared by A and B equally. Equally means 10,000 each. Capitals invested are 2 lakhs and 1 lakh. Profit sharing is equal, so they are getting equal share in the profit. So you can observe this. B's capital is almost half of what A has invested. B's capital is almost half of what A has invested, but the share in the profit what is getting is equal to A. So now here B is getting an undue advantage over A. Investing less capital, he is getting same share as what A is getting. To avoid this, there has to be some interest on capital provided. For example, interest on capital is say 5%. Now see what happens. A, how much is capital? 2 lakhs. Of that 2 lakhs, 5% comes to 10,000. B gets another 5%, so that comes only to 5,000 rupees. Now, at the end of the year, let's see how much the partners are getting. What partners are getting? A is getting 10,000 and 10,000 profit. So, A is getting in total rupees 20,000. See what B is getting. B is getting share in the profit 10,000 and interest 5,000. How much B is getting? 15,000. Now see, is B getting more than what A gets? A is getting more share in the profit compared with B. So this is why, because his capital is more. Basic concept, one who invests more should get more, is the basic concept. But if the profit sharing ratio is equal, that is not so. B is getting undue advantage. To cut off that advantage to be, interest on capital is given, wherein now A gets sufficient profits and B gets less than what A gets. This is the only need to charge interest on capital. Now, as we have learned in the contents of partnership deed, interest on capital can only be allowed if it is written in the partnership agreement. If it is specified in the partnership deed that interest on capital is to be allowed at so and so rate, then only interest on capital can be claimed by the partners. If there is nothing mentioned in the partnership deed, interest on capital cannot be claimed. So if in the partnership deed mentioned interest on capital at 5%, at 8%, at 10%, fine, at that rate we should calculate. But in the partnership deed, it is mentioned that interest on capital is to be given. Rate is not mentioned. I repeat, In the partnership deed, they have mentioned that interest on capital is allowed to the partners, but at what rate it is not mentioned. In that case, it's going to be always 6%. So what is this? If interest on capital partners have to claim, it has to be mentioned in the partnership deed. If not mentioned, they cannot claim. If it is mentioned that they will get the interest, but the rate is not given, then the rate has to be 6%. After this, the question arises, how to calculate this interest on capital? This is a very straightforward calculation I have shown you. But when we start the problems, we have three capitals actually. One is called as the opening capital, another will be taken as additional capital, and at the end of the year, what we get is closing capital. Then the question is on what to calculate the interest. Remember, on closing capital, we never calculate the interest because closing is what? Opening plus additional minus drawings, we get the closing capital. So on closing capital, we never calculate interest. We calculate on opening capital and additional capital. On opening capital means at the beginning of the year, on the first day of the year, at the end of the year we calculate. So on opening capital, always the interest will be for full year, say 12 months. But when you calculate additional capital, see on what date the capital is introduced. On what date the capital is introduced. On what date the capital is introduced, from that date to the year ending, we calculate the interest on additional capital. So from this date, say for example, the year ending is 31st March 2018 is the year ending. Year ending means when the accounts are closed. This capital is introduced on 1/10/2017. Shall we calculate full year's interest? No. Now this is the year ending means what? Which year is this? This financial year is 17/18. It is introduced on 1st October, so we'll calculate the interest on additional capital from 1st October. October, November, December, January, February and March. For how many months will you calculate? 6 months. So when you calculate interest on additional capital, take the months into consideration. If it is introduced additional capital on the first day only of the year, again that for full 12 months. Now let us take up one full problem and see how to calculate this interest on capital. So let's see how to calculate the interest on capital. The basic format. As I said, interest on capital we calculate on what? Opening and additional capital. Opening capital is at the beginning of the year, on the first day of the year, so for full year. Interest on capital, opening capital for full year. How to calculate? Capital amount into the rate of interest in the outer column. Add interest on additional capital considering the period of investment, from what date to what date the amount is invested. Amount of capital into rate of interest into the number of months, we get the interest on capital. In many cases, it so happens that the partners, what capital they have introduced or what capital they have in the firm, they withdraw that capital. Not the entire, a part of the capital is withdrawn. When the part of the capital is withdrawn, less interest on that withdrawn capital, because it's like same as I gave the example of bank deposits. You have deposited 20,000, you'll get interest on 20,000. Of that 20 you have taken out, you have withdrawn 5,000, you'll get interest on 20,000. Now on the balance 15,000. Same is the case here. When you withdraw the capital, that much interest will be minused. Less interest on capital withdrawn, considering again the period of investment, amount of capital withdrawn into the rate of interest into the number of months. When you minus, this is the final interest, what is payable by the partnership firm to the partners. Let us take up a problem and see how to calculate this. Problem number 5. X and Y are partners in a firm. Their capital accounts as on 1st April 17, the first day of the year, showed a credit balance of 2 lakhs and 1 lakh respectively. So the capital of X is 2 lakhs opening capital and capital of Y is 1 lakh. On 1st July 17, X introduced an additional capital of 50,000 and Y has introduced additional capital of rupees 80,000. On what date it is introduced? 1st July. So when you calculate interest on additional capital, not for full year, from 1st July till 31st March. Next paragraph. On 1/1/18, Y withdrew 30,000 from his capital. This is what is the interest on capital withdrawn. We have to minus. Interest is allowed at 10% per annum. So let us see now how to calculate this interest on capital for the year 17-18. First, we'll calculate the interest on capital of X and then of Y. This is how we start with. First, interest on capital of X. Let us start with the interest on opening capital. Interest on opening capital. How do we take it? Amount of capital into the rate of interest. What is the amount of capital? X, 2 lakhs. What is the rate of interest? 10%, that is 10 upon 100. So 2 lakhs into 10 upon 100. The amount that we get is 20,000 rupees. 20,000 rupees. Then, on 1st July, they have introduced an additional capital. X has introduced 50,000. We are calculating first only for X. So let us show that. Add interest on additional capital. How much is the capital he has introduced? 50,000. Into what percent? 10%, that is 10 by 100. On what date? July. So from July, when you multiply here, from July to March, how many months? July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February and March. 9 months interest we have to calculate into 9 by 12. What you get is 3,750. Check out further. Less interest on capital withdrawn. Has X withdrawn his capital? No. Who has withdrawn? Y. So we less that in case of Y. That's all with the interest on capital. So that's going to be 23,750. The firm has to pay to X 23,750 rupees as interest on capital. Now let us calculate for Y. After leaving the line, interest on capital of Y. Let us first calculate the interest on opening capital. As we know, on opening capital, we calculate the interest for full year. Interest on capital. How much is the opening capital? 1 lakh rupees. And the rate of interest is 10%. So what interest we get is rupees 10,000. Now, even Y has introduced rupees 80,000. Separate date is not given. That means Y has introduced on 1st July only. So we have to calculate additional capital interest for again 9 months. We'll add interest on additional capital. The amount of additional capital introduced by Y, 80,000 into 10 upon 100, but for 9 months. So 80,000 into 10 upon 100 into 9 months, what amount we get is 6,000 rupees. So 10 and 6, the total interest what he should get is 16,000. But Y has withdrawn how much? 30,000. On what date he has withdrawn? 1/1/18. That means that on that 30,000 will calculate interest for January, February and March for 3 months. It is interest on withdrawn capital which we minus. Less interest on capital withdrawn. Amount of capital that he has withdrawn is rupees 30,000. 30,000 into 10%. Withdrawn on 1st January. So January, February and March. 3 months interest. So when you calculate 10% of 30,000 into 3 by 12, what we get is 750 rupees. From that 16,000 will minus 750. What you get is 15,250. This is the interest what firm has to pay to I. 15,250. The total interest we can show here as 23 plus 15 is 38 and 750 150. What you get is 39,000 is the total interest what firm has to pay to the partners. This is how interest on capital is calculated. We have to do this in the further problems as working notes. In this session, we have learned how to calculate interest on capital. In the next session, we learn how to calculate interest on drawings under different situations and different methods. Thank you.